What if a single overlooked night could unravel an entire war, before the world even knows it has begun to slip? History is filled with moments when the fate of nations hinged not on epic battles, but on the silent collapse of a single link in a much larger chain. In the darkness of Ukraine's Black Sea coast, such a moment arrived, one that echoed the most pivotal crises of the past and threatened to redraw the boundaries of power in the present. Imagine the port of Chornomorsk, shrouded in blackness, where shadows darted between looming cranes and stacks of containers. Suddenly, a thunderous blast split the night. In that flash, a shipment critical to Ukraine's defense, one that could have altered the course of ongoing battles, was reduced to embers and twisted metal. Ammunition, supplies, and what may have been an irreplaceable component of the Patriot air defense system vanished in the fire. But the shockwaves extended far beyond material loss. Among those caught in the blast were not only Ukrainian officers, but senior NATO representatives. Their personal presence at the port was no coincidence. It revealed a deeper anxiety. Western allies had lost faith in paper guarantees. They demanded oversight, eyes on every crate, hands on every manifest. That need for direct supervision, born of both urgency and mistrust, would create its own vulnerabilities. Official bulletins gave no hint of the disaster, but the truth could not be hidden. As the embers cooled, Russian forces across the front surged forward, launching coordinated attacks well behind Ukrainian lines. With a single strike, the enemy had snapped a key link in Ukraine's logistical arteries, and the consequences began to ripple outward, threatening not only the defense of the country, but the very fabric of the Western alliance supporting it. Miss the deeper lesson here, and you risk overlooking how a single rupture in logistics can devastate not only equipment, but morale, alliances, and entire war strategies. In the 21st century, power often shifts in the shadows, where one silent failure can tip the entire balance. The fate of nations may depend less on the clash of armies and more on the unseen, unsung work of supply chains and trust. This was no ordinary supply run gone wrong. Beneath the silence, a new phase of the war was already beginning, one shaped not by open combat, but by the invisible battles that decide who has the resources, the initiative, and the will to endure. Why was this shipment so critical, and why did it demand the personal vigilance of Western officers in the shadows before dawn? At Ukraine's Black Sea lifeline, the port of Chornomorsk, an unusually sensitive military consignment arrived under the cloak of night. Unlike routine deliveries, this cargo moved with a sense of secrecy and speed more commonly associated with covert operations than standard logistics. Dock workers hustled crates from ship to truck in a continuous relay, never pausing, never allowing a single box to linger. The urgency in the air was palpable. Every second seemed to carry the weight of the nation's survival. Convoys rumbled off the dock, headlights cutting through the mist as they raced toward the front lines. There was no time for paperwork, no margin for delay. Time in this operation was a weapon as critical as any missile or drone. This was not just another shipment. It was a lifeline, one that could reinforce a failing defense, decide the outcome of a looming battle, or supply a desperate stronghold on the verge of collapse. But it was not only the cargo's speed that raised alarm. In a rare and telling move, senior Ukrainian commanders and high-ranking NATO officers were present on the dock. Such figures are almost never seen outside secure headquarters. Their presence was not for ceremony or publicity. It was a signal. The shipment's value was measured not only in millions of dollars, but in its potential to alter the course of the war. Western military specialists, experts in logistics, weapons systems, and counterintelligence, joined the operation. They did not simply observe. They checked manifests, broke seals, and personally inspected every crate. Their hands-on control revealed a deeper, more troubling anxiety. Trust in Ukraine's ability to safeguard such critical assets had eroded. For NATO, oversight had become a necessity, forged by hard lessons learned from previous losses, thefts, and intelligence leaks. Every step, every signature, every lock and seal was scrutinized. What then was hidden in those steel containers? The true manifest was a closely held secret, but military chatter suggested weapons that could shift the balance. Long-range missiles, advanced communication suites, possibly even a coveted Patriot air defense module. The loss of such cargo would be disastrous, not only in terms of hardware, but in the fragile confidence that bound Ukraine and its allies together. To understand the stakes, consider historical parallels. In World War II, the Allied victory was made possible not just by fighting spirit, but by the unbroken flow of supplies across the Atlantic. The loss of even a single convoy could doom entire armies. Similarly, in the Vietnam War, the infamous Tet Offensive succeeded in part because American supply lines were stretched thin, and a surprise attack proved catastrophic. The lesson is timeless. Logistics win wars, and their failure can spell defeat. In this war, alliances are as vulnerable as supply lines. One lost shipment can do more than deprive soldiers at the front. It can fracture trust, stall aid, and send tremors through the Western coalition. The stakes are existential. A single misstep tonight could ripple across the front and into the corridors of power in distant capitals, from Brussels to Washington, from Berlin to London. Yet, the very precautions, the urgency, the layers of scrutiny, the presence of so many high-level observers, created a new risk. When everyone is watching, when the schedule is compressed, and when the pressure is unbearable, a single breach is all it takes for disaster to strike. And disaster did strike. What happened next would shake Ukraine's defenders, and its allies, to the core. When defenses fail at the moment of greatest need, who bears the cost? The port lay silent, save for the rush of covert work on the docks. Then, without warning, missiles rained down from the sky. The timing was perfect, too perfect for Ukrainian air defenses to repel. The defenders launched interceptor after interceptor, but the assault came from every direction, overwhelming the shield and stretching crews to the brink. One missile broke through. Its impact tore apart an ammunition depot, igniting a chain of secondary explosions that turned the night into a wall of fire. Each blast ripped through stores of munitions, sending shockwaves through the city and cloaking the port in smoke. The flames claimed more than steel and powder. At the epicenter, frantic hands struggled to unload precious cargo. Among them were not only Ukrainian officers, but also high-ranking NATO specialists. Their presence was no accident. They were sent to oversee the shipment because Western command no longer fully trusted local logistics with such vital arms. Every crate, every manifest, every movement was watched by Western and Ukrainian officers standing side by side. Their vigilance, meant to guarantee control, instead placed them directly in harm's way as the missiles struck. Rumors raced through the ranks. A Patriot air defense system, one of the West's most prized and expensive shields, may have been obliterated in the strike. If true, the loss was staggering. Not just millions of dollars in hardware, but the sudden collapse of a critical barrier, one that could not be replaced for months. How could such a disaster happen? The answer is a toxic blend of frantic last-minute logistics and suffocating oversight. Western distrust forced foreign officers onto the front lines, right where enemy intelligence was waiting for a target. The attackers seized the exact moment of maximum vulnerability. The cost was paid instantly, in blood, in fire, and in shattered trust. Yet the deeper stakes were clear. Losing this shield and its cargo left a raw, open weakness in the defensive line, exposing the entire front to fresh danger. As flames consumed the port, few understood the true scale of the disaster. Only when the consequences began to erupt far from the port did the magnitude become clear. In the aftermath, enemy forces wasted no time exploiting the breach. What followed was a rapid shift on the battlefield, with consequences that would soon ripple far beyond the port. What if a single missed shipment exposes the entire defense to disaster? As dawn broke, Russian assault groups surged forward in tightly coordinated waves across the Dnipropetrovsk region. These attacks were not random. They were disciplined, precise, more like a rehearsed operation than mere probing. It seemed as if the attackers knew exactly where to press, sensing the sudden void left by the vanished supply line. This was no coincidence. The near-simultaneous breakthroughs revealed a deeper crisis, a catastrophic failure within the Ukrainian logistics chain. The port strike had not merely destroyed weapons and cargo, it had severed a vital artery feeding the front. The shipment lost that night, rushed under darkness with such urgency, was meant to fill desperate gaps across hundreds of kilometers of defense. Now, entire frontline units found themselves without fresh ammunition, no replacement parts, no vital electronics. Radio calls grew frantic. Soldiers did not plead for backup, but for the basics necessary to keep fighting. Their requests echoed unanswered. In the rear, the logistics network began to fracture. Panic spread as delays compounded. Commanders scrambled to reshuffle what little remained in scattered depots, but confusion reigned. Every missing crate, every destroyed truck, weakened battalions far from the port, each loss a tremor shaking the whole front. Operational readiness collapsed with alarming speed. Defensive plans drafted weeks ago unraveled in mere hours, undone by the absence of resources. The holes that shipment was meant to patch became dangerous breaches, now wide open to Russian exploitation. At headquarters, Ukraine's top brass went silent. Official updates were bland, filled with patriotic slogans, but empty of real details. There were no explanations, no admissions, only a spreading sense, among troops and civilians alike, that something vital had failed. The stakes could scarcely be higher. If disruptions like this persist, Ukraine risks losing not just outposts, but entire regions. Each breakdown drains morale from exhausted soldiers and erodes trust in the chain of command. Western partners, already uneasy, begin to question their continued support and coordination. In war, the loss of a single night's cargo can shift the fate of thousands. But here, the damage reverberated even further, threatening the very foundation of Ukraine's resistance. As commanders scrambled to regain control, the real question emerged. Could Ukraine's defense recover before another blow landed? The clock was ticking, and the world was watching. Wars are rarely decided in the trenches alone. The real battle is waged in the shadows, across supply chains that can make or break a nation's fate. When a single Ukrainian port was obliterated in one night, millions of dollars worth of armaments vanished, but something much deeper was exposed, the hidden fragility within Ukraine's logistical heart. Every crate of ammunition, each convoy, every fuel truck is a vital artery. Sever just one, and the loss does not stay local. It ripples, weakening the entire defense. The enemy knows this all too well. They do not need to win every firefight if they can bleed Ukraine's lifelines behind the front. Western aid is not simply delivered, it is policed. NATO officers oversee shipments on the ground, a gesture of unity laced with suspicion. If trust ran deep, would every box and manifest need such scrutiny? This uneasy partnership exacts a price. Bureaucracy multiplies. Each extra inspection, every redundant form, becomes a potential choke point. In war, a delay of even a few minutes can spread disaster. A missed window, a failed defense, a sudden collapse along miles of front line. But the casualties of this hidden conflict go beyond lost equipment. The people sustaining these chains, logisticians, truck drivers, port workers, and officers, face relentless pressure. Under such strain, staff burn out, errors multiply, and vital shipments falter. Each lapse, born of exhaustion, is a silent victory for the enemy, turning cracks into chasms and magnifying the risk of catastrophic failure. Consider the lessons of history. During the siege of Leningrad in the Second World War, the inability to keep supply routes open cost hundreds of thousands of lives. In the Gulf War, the speed and efficiency of American logistics became a decisive advantage. And in Afghanistan, delayed supply convoys left outposts isolated, vulnerable to sudden attack. In each case, the fate of armies and nations was shaped by the invisible hand of logistics. Now, Ukraine's survival hinges less on heroics at the front and more on its ability to repair and defend its own logistical backbone. Restoring trust, streamlining oversight, and safeguarding the workers behind the lines are no longer luxuries. They are the bedrock of every future success. Ignoring these lessons courts disaster. Not just the loss of battles, but the collapse of alliances and the erosion of hope itself. When the background fails, the front cannot endure. The silence from officials speaks volumes. As rumors swirl, the world wonders, what truly happened that night? And what does it mean for the war's endgame? This is not merely the story of a single violent night in Ukraine. It is a warning every leader, ally, and observer must heed. The flames that devoured the port did more than erase warehouses and scorch vehicles. In one ruthless strike, a vital shipment, and perhaps a crucial air defense system, vanished. But something even more fragile burned away: the illusion of safety that shielded Ukraine and its partners. When dawn broke over the ruins, the real crisis began to unfold. Across Ukraine's front lines, a tremor of vulnerability spread. Enemy commanders sensed it instantly. They did not hesitate. Swift attacks pressed into the gap, seeking to turn a single setback into a cascading collapse. In mere hours, the loss of one hidden node in the logistical web became a chasm, one that threatened to unravel months of stubborn resistance and shift the balance of the war for months, or even years to come. The most decisive moments in conflict rarely make headlines. They hide in the shadows: missed deliveries, broken promises, the slow erosion of trust between allies. When senior NATO officers are forced to supervise shipments in person, it signals more than urgency. It reveals a fracture in confidence, a weakness as dangerous as any missile or tank. The risk is larger than defeat on the battlefield. It is the collapse of credibility, alliances, and the belief that careful planning can withstand chaos. If these hidden failures go unaddressed, tomorrow's news will be written in the ashes of today's overlooked disasters. This is the real lesson. Wars are often lost long before the final battle, in the silent moments when no one is watching. So what can be done, practically, urgently, right now? First, Ukraine and its partners must invest not just in weapons, but also in the security and redundancy of their supply chains. Portable air defense, decoy convoys, and hardened storage facilities can reduce the risk of catastrophic loss. Lessons from Israel's Iron Dome and America's rapid deployment logistics in Desert Storm show how layered defenses and nimble supply routes can blunt even the most sophisticated attacks. Second, Western oversight should evolve from mere scrutiny into genuine partnership. Rather than policing every detail, resources should be devoted to training, empowering, and equipping local logisticians to maintain the highest standards of security and efficiency. Allied advisors could rotate in and out, offering expertise without becoming targets themselves. Third, psychological resilience must be cultivated among the workers and officers who form the backbone of the logistics network. This means rest cycles, stress reduction protocols, and real-time intelligence sharing. The human element is the most fragile and the most essential link in the chain. Fourth, the information war must not be neglected. Clear, honest communication with both troops and the public builds trust and prevents panic. In the aftermath of disasters, open admission and rapid corrective action can restore confidence and prevent the enemy from exploiting silence and rumors. Finally, all parties must remember that wars are decided as much by discipline and foresight as by valor. The rear is as important as the front. Every box, every schedule, every handshake matters. As history has shown, the winner is often the side that learns and adapts the fastest, especially in the face of invisible setbacks. So as the world watches Ukraine struggle, let us not be distracted by the drama of the front line alone. The hidden war, fought in warehouses, on loading docks, and in the silent calculations of those who keep the lifelines open, is where destiny is shaped. If you care what happens next, in the war zone or the halls of power, do not look away. Study the background as closely as the foreground, ask the hard questions, insist on improvement. For the silent failures, the missed nights, and the overlooked cracks in the chain, these are what decide the fate of nations. In the end, it is not just about one missed shipment or one burning port. It is about the difference between resilience and collapse, between hope and despair. The lesson is clear. In war, as in life, the things you cannot see are often the most important. And sometimes, one night is all it takes to change the world.